All right, what's going on, guys? Max has a super cool talent that he wants to show you. He can drink a water. He can drink a water bottle real quick.
He also did an average speed.
All right, welcome back to Large Lads. What episode is this? 6?
6.
Welcome back to Large Lads, episode 6, your favorite non-podcast podcast on the internet. So we're going to get into it. First, we're going to do training check-ins. How was last week of training? What's this week of training looking like? How are things going?
Hopefully I won't take up the first 45 minutes.
Also, you guys bullied me. I think that's what happened. People were telling me I was cutting off Max. This dude will monologue for 2. You guys think I talk too much. Max would make a very good old man. Nobody loves storytelling with heavy embellishment for an hour and vivid detail as much as Max does. I'm trying to keep this show on the rails and make sure we touch on more than one topic.
I'd like to give whoever said stop cutting Max off a t-shirt for free. Whenever we make merch, you're getting a t-shirt.
Yeah, we don't have t-shirts, but if we did, you get one.
It's been an ongoing thing in the house. It doesn't seem to be the need to be that close. Hopefully. I hope the audio's not way better now. That'd be really bad.
It's going to be way better.
Fuck. It's been an ongoing thing in the household that I cut Sam off constantly. So you calling me that was really huge for me. That was good. You're getting a free t-shirt.
Rare dub.
I'm going to start offering free t-shirts.
Bitch, how was your training?
It's a show. People are here for the personalities. Again, my training was fine. It was good.
Okay, cool.
That was yours.
My training's been going pretty good. I'm very worried. I'm probably out of frame. I'm doing my cool guy. No.
Okay, awesome.
I trained my triceps maybe a little bit too well on my last training day on Saturday. I did some Smith machine JM presses because I did dips as like my big tricep heavy compound on that day. And my pecs were a little bit too tight to do my behind the neck push presses properly last Monday. And like my shoulders felt like kind of shitty at the top because my overhead position wasn't right. So I was like, okay, I need to probably switch my heavy tricep compound to something that isn't going to get my pec sore, right? So I switched to these Smith machine JM presses because I've used them in the past and they work pretty good. One, my chest got sore from those, just squeezing at the top. And 2, oh my God, my triceps are destroyed. I want to get to 4 plates on those because I saw somebody post that and somebody sent it to the group chat, be like, oh my God. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I could do that. When I was benching 500 in my college gym, I did like 3 plates for like 8 on Smith machine jams.
That was like 100 pounds on your max ago, right?
Yeah. So I was like, okay, well, I'm quite a bit bigger and stronger now. It's probably I've mentioned on the channel how I think weight chasing tricep exercises is
super cool.
A mistake that everybody makes. Like it's like Josh Bryant said that was a mistake. Kazmaier said that was a mistake. Is just like instead of just trying, the goal is to get the triceps like bigger and stronger, not just to arbitrarily say I do 2 plate skull crushers or whatever it is. And like usually that'll lead to like an over fatiguing of the elbows for no real reason. It's like the people that are the strongest accessory exercises are often not the best at the main lift. Like Max and I talk about this often. There are guys who have huge totals. We're talking like 21, 22, even 2,300 that are like, your total isn't even actually accurate to how generally strong you are. You are an obscenely strong human being that's not particularly good at powerlifting. And you're getting beat by someone who every single individual component, like you're squatting less than a guy who leg extensions more than you or less than you. More?
You're getting out squatted.
You're getting out squatted by a guy that does less on the leg extension, less on the hip machine, less on the calf raise, less on the leg press. But that's also your error for not prioritizing your training quickly, like properly, because it's like as soon as you start to get ahead of the curve on an accessory, that energy should probably be diverted to things that you're not good at, not continuing to chase it above how good you are at your main lift.
Well, there's like kind of like the curve of efficiency. And I always think of myself both as like, I'm pretty good at powerlifting and also like, I'm a little meathead strong.
Yeah.
And then there's people who are just way farther in both directions.
Yeah.
Or like anybody who is as strong as me and was doing a terrible job of powerlifting is so much stronger than me.
Yeah.
And it's not even close.
Yeah. People who are really, really like untechnically proficient.
Yeah.
A total like 2,100-ish.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
It's not even close. It's
wow, you are strong.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Get into strongman.
And there are people who usually it's squeaking by an individual lift of mine that are just so much more efficient than me in that individual.
Yeah, right. Like you're not at the pinnacle of like single lift efficiency, you know? But yeah, no, like I know weight chasing tricep exercises is silly, and it's like I've done it, and I use less weight nowadays on my triceps than I used to when I benched like 530, because I was going on like a real like Ginger Achilles style, like I want to add a plate on top of every machine at my school gym type of kick.
Is there any muscle group that you'd say the real weight chasing is like straight beneficial for?
I mean, based on Jasper, fucking 2-inch rows with obscene amounts of weight seems to work.
No, don't encourage the YouTube.
Yeah, no, don't do that. It only works for Jasper. I'd like actually serious. No, I mean, I think like weight chasing, it's tricky, right? Because it's like you should be trying to get stronger, right? It's like there's a balance between preserving your rep quality and being really, really a stickler with form. And there's also a balance between like, and maybe you could take that too far to where you're seeing this really like lackluster rate of progression. You could just be getting more out of your accessories by just going harder rather than being so concerned with like the tiniest bit of breakdown. On the other side of the coin, right, you could like make it so log booking is completely irrelevant, because to beat last week's number, you just use a faster tempo, partial range of motion, more body English. So it's like the logbook aspect is completely out the fucking window. I don't know. I think rep standardization to some degree kind of matters for every muscle. I'm trying to think if I've got one, like, because I mean, but you can like develop like really well developed musculature without great rep standardization, especially if you are primarily training like a longer range of motion and you're going hard.
I was gonna say, it's like, as long as you like prioritize the range of motion, like keeping in that muscle group, like we could really booga booga most muscles. I was, well, that's such a huge cop.
That's the difference, right, between maybe an experienced lifter that uses like body English is they never lose the sensation of like feeling the target muscle. Whereas someone could be doing a very similar amount of like body sway on a row, and they're like in and out of feeling their lat at best. You can see a lot of guys, they're never in their lat. It's just like catch, erector, speed, up. And they're like, oh, you're never really connecting with the lat, right?
Well, that seems to be one of those like people take a second to like actually be good at connecting with.
Yeah, you need some muscle there to connect with it. Like you ask someone who doesn't train to flex their lat and they can't do that. So it's like, if I can't even flex my lat passively, how am I supposed to have any mind muscle connection with it?
Yeah.
That was the same thing for Kirsten. I was like, she couldn't figure out what connect with your lats on like a pull down meant until she just did a bunch of like reasonable form pull downs, developed some amount of lat muscle. Yeah. Then she could flex it. Then she could feel it on the motions, and that kind of spiraled into more growth. Like I agree. I think there's a lot of muscles like that. I think people really struggle to connect with their hamstrings on a hinge early on, just because it's such a uncommon motor pattern. Like in sports, you're not doing a pure hinge. It's more of like, it's like a very fundamental lifter movement pattern, and it's a good developmental tool for athletes, but it's like, I don't remember ever. It doesn't happen in day-to-day life, right? Whereas like some muscles you use a lot, like your biceps, actually like carrying stuff are pretty commonly used, and people know how to feel their biceps a little bit quicker because it's something they use every day. Yeah, I think there's a couple of muscles like that where it's like connecting with it is this very vague concept until it's a little bit more developed. I mean, like even just like recruiting your quad, like this idea that, okay, we need to have forward knee travel. We kind of want to have full foot pressure, but like the forefoot pressure really matters. As we stand up out of the hole, we want to leave the knee forward, not, oh, well, I got down to the bottom, my knee was way forward. And then right as I stood out of the hole, my knee shifted back to right over my ankle, and we kind of dumped that weight into the posterior chain. I think there's a ton of muscles like that, but I would say lat is like up there.
Okay.
But I know it's stupid to weight chase these jam presses, but I'm going to do it anyway. Just do it once, like not be like, oh, my working weight is 405. Like, no, my working weight's probably going to be about 3 plates. Just do it once, post it on Instagram, make it seem like that's what I do all the time.
So we've been training together 3 days a week.
Correct.
Do you feel a noticeable difference on those sessions?
In terms of what?
Like effectiveness or like the intensity that you're like going on your accessories?
So I guess we could go day by day. Leg day, no. I've been going pretty hard on my lunges kind of regardless. Yep. I like them. Yeah. I'm convinced they've got some utility for strongman. Just this idea of moving across space with like your legs, you know, is like, it's squatting is a fundamental kind of strength pattern, but also moving is a fundamental strength pattern when it comes to strongman. Yep. And it's like just weighted moving with a big range of motion It's helpful for like acceleration on the yoke. And it seems very strongman-y to have to do something where you move on leg day, right? Whether that's like a sled, drag, or a lunge. So I've been going really hard on those. Nothing there. I haven't been able to push my leg extensions to the limits yet because I'm like, those are like basically still in rehab mode because, as you know, those are the most demanding motion on my knee. So I feel like I'm not like pushing any harder. I'm just kind of hanging out at that window of rehab where it's like enough to probably be stimulative to be a little stronger and a little bit more rehab next week, but not so much that I regress myself. Because if I tried to keep up with you, my left patellar tendon would get really mad. And then calf raises, we didn't really go very hard on those. So that day,
true strength athletes.
not a ton of difference. Deadlift day, the pacing is faster for sure because I've got a few more sets than you on the deadlift. So I've been having to push my pace a little bit more consciously, which has honestly probably been good. And then in terms of the accessories, I'd say probably a little bit harder on the hamstrings, a little bit harder on the back extensions that I would be working by myself, especially at the end on that like set of 20 on the back extensions. Sometimes I might just take a 15 and like be like, okay, I'll get 20 next time. Whereas like we've just been like, okay, we'll just get 20. You know, the abs probably slightly harder, but that's also just because I've been prioritizing those recently. I'd say the day that I've been working harder from having a training partner has been the Saturday session.
We're back.
Like we've been going hard on we got a chest supported prime row at our gym, which we're using in kind of place of a single arm dumbbell row. Definitely been going harder on that than I probably would be if I was left to my own devices. And then, I would say that session's the one that like it's made a noticeable difference in terms of training intensity.
All right, here's my.
What about you?
I haven't done lunges, so I don't know how hard I've been going. Last week, I definitely went harder than I would have gone solo because I gave myself an awful headache. And that was definitely because we had one of Sam's client training with us, and he was, for someone who squats 400 pounds less than me, pretty close in lunge numbers, which was so deeply embarrassing that I was like, I've got to do double the reps. And I gave myself a gnarly headache. So I definitely went harder for that one. And then leg extensions, I always went ham. I was like kind of barely doing calves, so I still would give the point to. I'm going slightly harder now.
True. Yeah, you were doing calves before, really, other than single leg ones, right?
Yeah. Deadlifts. It's funny because I have like so many or so fewer sets on that session. My pace is like slightly slower right now.
Max is having. We'll touch on this with Paris's question. Right now, our training isn't like perfectly synced up because Max is still, I would say this week or last week was his first week of real deadlift training, whereas everything prior was like straight up rehabilitation training. So he's been having to slow down his pace. I think our sessions would take about the same amount of time if we were both in the thick of hypertrophy training. But right now, because I do 5 work sets of deadlifts, he does 3. And then I do some front squats or some leg press, and he does some technique squats. The technique squats are obviously faster than working sets. So he's been having to slow down his pace. Hopefully this week might be the last week of that because you'll probably be hanging out on the ground between the deadlift volume.
So, and then deadlift day, probably going harder than I would on my hamstrings. I think I'd probably be going that hard on back extensions because I see that as like a primary hinge. I usually work very hard on my primary hinge. But like hammy curls is the kind of thing that I would just like this is mostly useless. This is a fluff exercise. We were talking about like if I applied the same intensity to hamstring curls as I did my leg extensions, that I would be in a very different spot right now. And like that's like assess with yourself if you're working way harder on some of your accessories than others. Because it's like,
and if that correlates with the lift that you're good at, you're like, oh man, I go crazy on tricep press downs, but for some reason my bench is my best lift. It must be because my arms are short. It's like until you're working as hard on your leg extensions, like let's just go like apples to apples, single joint isolation, right? Right, because it's like, okay, I mean, your dumbbell presses would probably be more akin to like your hack squats or your leg presses or your RDLs, right? If we kind of scaled those, like, okay, well, they're compounds of a similar pattern,
but
right?
very different perception of difficulty.
But we're going to go isolations, right? Isolating tricep extensions, right? Isolating hamstring curls, isolating leg extensions. If there's a massive discrepancy with effort and that kind of lines up with what lifts you're worst at, that's not a leverages thing. It could absolutely partially be a leverages thing, right? Because it's like if you initially didn't see success on your deadlift day, you might start mentally checking out of that day. But the reason you initially weren't as good as it because it wasn't the lift you had the best like propensity for. But you owe it to yourself to like identify which one you're mailing in.
Yeah.
It's like, if anything, if you're going to pick one that you pride yourself on going crazy on, it should be the one that correlates with the lift that you're naturally the worst at.
Because I feel like I've like thought of myself as like, I'm pretty hardworking. And then there would be like gaps in that almost where it's like,
yeah, there's certain exercises you realize it's like, oh, this it's not like random. It's this one is not the same. It's like maybe it's not mailed in, because I don't think you and I mail in too much of our training, but it's really not the same level of effort. You would be very
focused.
Like, you'd be really disappointed in yourself if you like racked a set there on different motions where you hold yourself to a high standard.
Yeah. And then upper back day, yeah, I think the fact that I'm doing 2 upper back motions opposed to 1, those rows are definitely higher intensity, and the pull-ups are like, I can't go hard because it's like
you just fail.
Yeah, I just like the amount of steam that it takes to do those chest supported rows with you is just like, I did 3 pull-ups.
Yeah, that's the brutal part about the unilateral work in general, right? Is like it's got like these unique training benefits of like anti-rotation, right? Like if we're talking like leg work, like the lunges, there's like the stability is better. Like you get more of this like stabilizing training, maybe a little bit more stimulus for the glutes and the adductors. Super cool. Everybody agrees that like the benefits to unilateral work is good, right? Like reducing side to side asymmetry to some degree. Everybody agrees it's good. Oh my God, it's such a massive pain in the ass for every one set to be 2 sets on something like a dumbbell row or these single arm rows, where it's like I just put forward like a massive effort and I don't even really have time to rest. I'm like, I have to go match that on the other side, because at least the lunges feels like 1 set. That's why I really like lunges over split squats, because it doesn't feel like I have to do each set twice.
Oh God, I don't know. The lunges are brutal because it feels like it's a set of 30.
Yeah, no, they're hard as fuck.
You're not getting like 1-1. I'm like 1-2. It's like I gotta go to 30.
Oh, I count 1-1, 2-2, 3-3. Yeah, just keep the number lower in my head.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I reset the count back. So if I'm doing like a heavy set of 12, it's 6 down, 6 back, and I reset at the 6 to keep the numbers low. Because that way, on my way back, I'm only on 3. Yeah. I can't stop at 3.
That's fair.
That's terrible.
Yeah. If
I told myself I was at 9, I'd be like, that's, in the 8 to 12 range. That's pretty good.
Well, yeah. Sometimes I'll get to a set where I'm 18 reps deep. That's hypertrophy. But then I'm like, that's 9 reps. Like, the goal on the set is
I always go the 1-1, 2-2. Yeah, like, it's the same thing I do with like if I'm doing like tempo work or pauses. If I'm doing like a 3 count negative, I go 1, 1, 1 up. Right. That way I never lose track. I go 2, 2, 2 up. Or if I'm doing like a 3 count negative and a 1 count pause, I just count out 4 of the number. That way everything kind of stays fresh in my head. Like I'm still using it. I could go 1-1000, 1-1000, 1-1000 up, right? But that way I always know what rep I'm on, because you can't. I don't know how people count 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2. Like that's calculus.
Yeah, true.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I did fail out of calculus.
Cool. That's what's going on in my training. I potentially overtrained my triceps. Looking forward to legs this week. Deadlifts are starting to get hard. 5 sets of 5 is more straight sets than I'm used to. Definitely more straight sets than I'm used to.
Yeah.
Usually I'll go 3 sets on primary day, 2 to 3 sets on secondary day. 5 and 3 has been a good challenge. Like I definitely have been like on the verge of overtraining my lower back to where like I gotta be a little careful, do a good job of my brace. But that's also where my best gains have always happened, is like at the upper ends where I have to be careful, right? Like some of my best bench gains came from like my chest was always sore.
Yeah.
And so I had to do a good job with my hydration, had to do a really good job warming up, because I was really like, I was actually hanging out at MRV, right? Which I think is a valid hypertrophy concept, potentially. Probably not a good strength training concept, because if you're constantly hanging out at MRV and then you get one bad night of sleep, that number that was at MRV is suddenly above, and that's when you might pick up like some, maybe not like a catastrophic injury, but you start picking up more and more small injuries that tends to like derail training.
It's very funny because I've been so across the most of my career resilient in my upper body. It's like I come in a bench session sore. I'm like, that's fine. That's like the smallest deal in the world. I can come in thrashed, and it's like, wow, this is gonna be probably a worse bench session than usual. But if I came into like a primary deadlift session with a sore low back, I would be like texting you like very, very worried.
Yeah,
because of the
history.
Yeah, the history. Where it's like a bench session, I can come in sort of like, this bench session is gonna suck.
Yeah,
there's no risk involved in my mind.
Yeah, I haven't picked up a pec tweak in a while, thankfully. But like I used
the garage the last time you got one.
That was the last like bad one I had that like was like significant. But like I've picked up like smaller ones since then. It's like something just like I feel like is pretty common with bench training to like get these smaller injuries that like you just have to be smart for one down session and then you're back to going. But the problem is that maybe people wouldn't take the down session, right? I definitely think that my bench technique fixing up reduced the rate at which that happened. Like exercise selection, either doing dumbbells with the dumbbells rotated for that really deep stretch position or the Yukon bar. As soon as I started training those, huge decrease. Like things that where I was taking my pecs to a greater stretch than my bench, as well as fixing my bench technique and my tension in the bottom. I would say the combo of those two things, like I started tweaking my pec way at a lower rate, right? It's the same thing as like, I found that if I'm doing like XYZ core work and XYZ low back work, the rate at which I pick up low back tweak is down, right? Like that kind of thing is just like, if this is a history of like, if you've got a history of this, maybe you have to do it a couple times to learn the hard way to like actually do this boring shit. But like, it's like, I definitely learned that lesson enough to where like, I was like, I need to do these things. Like this is part of effective bench training for me. Even if some of these things, like maybe the pec flies, you could say they're potentiating. It's the same. People make the same argument about tricep extensions. They're like, that's not heavy enough to increase your bench press. And it's like, I'm not a beginner. I don't expect to increase my bench press, but I expect if I've got bigger triceps, future bench training cycles, when I take that bigger muscle and I strengthen it, I expect it to potentiate future success with my specific training. Right. I've always really not liked that argument. People are like, a pec fly is too light to help your bench press. Well, big pecs are really helpful for your bench press. So even if we don't see immediate carryover, I think that just one of the biggest predictors of biggest predictors of performance on the squat, bench, deadlift is cross-sectional area of the primary movers. So it's like, we all agree that these lower, you don't need to move the heaviest weight. We're not Mark Rippetoe. You don't need to move the heaviest weight possible to grow muscle, right? Like, so if we agree that they're useful for hypertrophy, I don't know how we can say that they're not useful for the bench press, right?
It's always weird whenever people like treat hypertrophy and strength as these like two like contrary goals. Or like you can make a training priority.
Oh, no. Be careful. I don't want to get fucking sucked into this power building debate that everybody's asking.
All right, moving on.
It's entirely semantic. I don't even think it's a good discussion. I don't want to be a part of it. Stop asking me to wait. No one cares what I think. I'm not one of the noble natties. I'm not a power builder. Stop asking me. It's entirely semantic. If we say power building is better than bodybuilding, right? It's like having those touches in the 1 to 5 rep range makes you bigger than someone who's doing 100% bodybuilding training. No, it isn't. That's just time and training economy spent on things that aren't necessarily very hypertrophically stimulative. If you say power building isn't a real thing, that's not a good point either, right? There's bodybuilding training, there's powerlifting training, right? We've got a rough idea of what's good for both. There's something that falls in the middle. Calling that power building, who cares? It must be kind of a real thing if we have this idea that optimal powerlifting training and optimal bodybuilding training are different things. Somewhere in between exists. And then as Max and I talked about, just because they're not the same thing, it doesn't mean it's stupid, right? Like if Max told me, Sam, I want to be jacked and do running, I could say, or like, let's say I want to be strong and also I want to be able to run a good mile time. Yes, there's going to be an interference effect between those two things. Yes, they're different things. That doesn't mean someone can't have two goals, even if those goals don't have perfect overlap. And they know, okay, well, I'm not going to get as good of results as if I did just powerlifting, and I'm not going to get as good of results as if 100% of my training economy was dedicated to running. I'm going to get somewhere in between, but that's what I think is cool. Have at it. That's fine. Just like how there's a bunch of people that watch my channel that do combat sports. I know I'm just answering it now. Right?
Yeah, I was going to make a joke about I vaguely hinted at the topic, and you were like, "Don't answer this." All right, guys, listen.
I'm an idiot. I'm fucking stupid.
I was like, all right, go for it.
I don't know. It's like just like how someone could say, I'm going to do combat sports and I'm also going to do powerlifting. Hey, just so you know, you're not going to be as good as individually at either of those sports as you would be if you dedicated 100% of your training economy to it. That's just how things work, right? If doing powerlifting was part of extremely effective MMA training, it would be part of MMA training definitionally, right? Same thing as if doing really heavy singles was part of really effective bodybuilding training. It would be part of what we view as effective bodybuilding training. But it's totally fine to say, no, I think this guy, hypothetical guy that I could be in the future that's pretty goddamn good at both is cool. That's fine. If you think, okay, this guy who's like pretty good at powerlifting and pretty good at bodybuilding, I think that guy's cool. It's not what I do. I dump all my training economy into the strength, and other guys dump all their training economy into the hypertrophy because that's what they want. And anything a step away from that is just misaligning their training and their goals. But if that's what you think is cool, no, it's not stupid. Okay.
And I would just say strength and hypertrophy can have a pretty comfortable symbiotic relationship. And also, if you don't just like hyper invest into powerlifting movements, they can be like pretty good for hypertrophy. It's not like a squat is like a ineffective.
Well, I mean, people get into the argument of like, okay, well, if you are invested in that, you're going to start tailoring your squat technique to be strength oriented, not hypertrophy oriented. Which, fair enough. Like that will happen, and that's why people that propose it's just as good for powerlifting or it's just as good for bodybuilding. And
I get that being like,
when they think
guys are goobers.
It's also like it's funny because we have a different perspective, right? Because we're coming from everybody else that's like weighing in on this is usually on the bodybuilder side, and it's like they're just annoyed that it's like dudes that do like heavy triples think that what they're doing is better for bodybuilding and that they're somehow geniuses.
Yeah, get the resistance there where it's like you didn't reinvent the wheel. You're not suddenly better at bodybuilding.
No, it's like what you're doing is a deviation away from effective bodybuilding training. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Right. And people think that what they're doing is like super unique. Right. And like, I guess the real pushback is when it's claimed to be more effective. Right. And then from our side of the coin, when we hear people saying power building, usually it's because they don't know what good strength athletes are doing. Yeah. And they overestimate how unique their training is. They're like, yeah, I'd go heavy and then I do bodybuilding work. And it's like, my brother, even like the everybody cites them as like the example of like modern specific powerlifting training. Yeah. The flex guys go through a very generic like leg day after they squat, like 3 sets of 8 to 12 on a couple of different motions. And they have a back day and the posterior chain work and pressing work. And it's like, you are not like, I understand why you think what you're doing is really unique because people only post their main compounds. The majority of like bar Milanachev, bar some Eastern Bloc athletes that are like really far down the line.
A guy who started with I have pro physique.
Right. Yeah. And it's like bar these guys, what you're doing isn't unique. And you don't necessarily need to throw a unique term on it just that you do hypertrophy work after your power lifts. Like that's what most of us are doing, to be honest. Mm-hmm. Like whether you're in the untested side or the tested side, the high specificity side, the low specificity side, that's kind of just a staple of most of the off season. A lot of people's preps still include these bodybuilding movements. So it's like, from our side, we're like, oh, power builders are guys that don't know that everybody else is doing bodybuilding work too. Now, does it exist? Yeah. Like there's a certain amount of bicep work that is just entirely unproductive for increasing your powerlifting total. Yeah. And if you choose to do that, you do choose to do more lateral raises than is productive. And you're like, I know this is cutting into my training economy, but I also want to look a certain way. Yeah. You could call yourself a power builder. I think the term is kind of still a little bit goofy, but I don't have any problem with it because it's like, why don't you just say, yeah, I'm training for powerlifting, but I do a little bit extra work, like for cosmetic stuff. It's better than terming yourself as this whole new hybrid athlete. It probably like the deviation you're making in your training probably isn't quite large enough to get a new title, right?
Yeah, it is a little bit of a shame because it's like there's that like middle ground between.
I'm so fucking. I can't believe we just turned this into like a discussion topic. When I said,
I barely like I was around the general area, and you're like, all right, let me hop in on this. You want to move on?
I've been organizing my thoughts on it because I like people keep fucking asking me, and I'm like, I'm not weighing in on this because it's just semantic. I can't believe this is like the big discussion because it's like one guy comes out and he gives an extremely reasonable definition of power building and says it's good. Yeah. One guy gives a definition of power building that is unfavorable and says it's bad. And it's like, holy shit, this isn't even a discussion. It's just individual terming, right? And it's like, but I organized my thoughts on it, right? Like I answered it on my story a while ago. We're just saying like, there's nothing wrong with having two goals, even if they don't overlap perfectly, right? I don't know. Yeah, from our perspective, it's just like a lot of people that are power builders are overestimating how unique what they're doing is, right? But I would say from bodybuilders who are doing effective,
they're also just doing a bad job of both,
for sure. But I'm saying for like bodybuilders that are doing effective bodybuilding training, right? Effective bodybuilders are basically not training in the 1 to 5 rep range. So you could say that the power builder that they're seeing is doing something novel, maybe warrants a different term, right? I would be very annoyed if they told me what they're doing is more effective. That's, in my opinion, that's silly. Everybody tries to coax me into saying, Well, for a bodybuilder should still do some strength work because then they could use more weight on their sets of 6 to 12 to 15, right? And it's like you could do more weight on your sets of 6 to 15 by just progressing those, right? We don't ever have to deviate into ranges that aren't hypertrophically productive, right? You could periodize and work on your 15s, your 12s, your 10s, your 8s, and your strength phase is like 6s or something, but it's still within that. We're not taking it to heavy triples, and that would be plenty of strength progression to then turn around to do more weight on your 12s and your 15s. We don't need to spend time completely away from the goal, right? So that was like kind of how I organized my thoughts on it, right? Because I understand what they're like, okay, this person is doing something different than me. Some of them are claiming it's superior. That would be annoying to me, right? But claiming it's stupid is stupid. Like it's just a different goal, right? Just like how there's other people that have like tons of different molding of different goals together. Yeah, that's fine. That's their goal. Like, how can you say a goal is stupid? A method to reach a goal can be very stupid. So it's like if really they don't give a shit about how much weight they lift, they only care about how they look, and they're doing power building. Okay, yeah, maybe there's a misalignment there. You should just be doing bodybuilding training. What we suspect is, but if you enjoy it, they can't be stupid. I don't know how stupid it can be. Yeah, nobody's paying you to do it.
It is funny that like in like a vacuum, right? People who are doing power building, I feel like are oftentimes just doing a better job of power lifting than they would be otherwise. Because if in like the void, if they're just doing that and they weren't doing those accessories, they would just be a worse powerlifter.
Yeah, if they were doing powerlifting based on what they understand pure powerlifting is. Yeah, no, I see where you're coming from there. It's like when people are like getting new into the gym, right? They're like, oh, I want to be a powerlifter. Does that mean I should just be doing like squat, bench, deadlift? It's like, no, I don't think just about any good coaches would put you on a program that involves just squat, bench, and deadlift. Right?
Yeah, your training specificity should go up as your training career goes along.
Like, yeah. All right, let's do the fan questions.
Fan questions? I was going to ask you a specific question.
Oh, let's go for it.
All right, Sam, roadmap into your mind, right? I don't know, whatever scale you want to answer that. What are the steps in the direction you need to go to reach your like longer term goals?
Me?
Yeah. Because you asked me the macro and you said you're not very good at it, so I thought it would be an interesting question. Like, what are what's like milestones, direction you want to go to be like the strength athlete you'd like to be? Where do you see yourself in?
Right now, the plan is to hang around 260 pounds to see if this 120 kilo strongman class is going to pan out. See if I can compete at a high level in that. Kind of cut my teeth and be like have more competition experience. Have touched a lot of different events. Hopefully have some degree of competitive success at this new weight class. I think I could be very athletic and fast, and I think eventually I could be a relatively lean-ish 260, which sounds great, right? Like, and that would be my base. That would be forcing me to address my deficit in some event skills. Meanwhile, working on obviously putting big weights over my head with leg drive, putting a big deadlift up. I would like to have a big squat because I think that helps a bunch of events, and I think it kind of correlates with some of the events I'm bad at. Like if I was better at squatting, I'd be good at those. Develop those kind of big static lifts, as well as get my event skill while competing at this weight class if it pans out to be a thing, and then look at a move up into the open because that's the cool one, right?
Really quick, I was going to ask you, let's say 120 becomes like a fully fleshed out, like legitimate class, right?
Yes.
Would a 120, like you're the strongest man at 120 5 years in a row, right? Yeah. Would that be like a moderately like unimportant achievement to you compared to being like a decent open guy?
It depends on what state the sport is, right? This is all fucking delusions of grandeur until I actually do something, right? But like just hypothetically.
So assuming you're the best 120 in the world for 5
years. It's tricky, right? Because it's like if it's a novel class and it doesn't have a big following, because the majority of the following for strongman is in the open classes, right? For the men. And now the women are starting to get put into these bigger shows and starting to have more name value among more casual fans. The recognition of names in the lower weight classes is pretty minimal. I'm assuming the 120s are going to fall into that same category, right? And like the level of competition, if it fills up really quick. And I felt like I beat some real good guys to win those. Like, I'm like, oh man, this is a talent stacked division. I won. That would mean a lot. I think it comes down to like, okay, regardless of like mainstream recognition, right? Like, okay, who cares about that? Regardless of recognition, it depends to me how hard I felt it was to win. Like if I felt like, oh man, I'm beating some guys who are really, really good at this, and I won 5 times in a row, I'll be like, no, that means something because I know who I beat. Even if like someone who doesn't follow Strongman very closely has no idea, that would mean something to me. If it's like everybody that is around that size is going up to the open and I'm just being the lame-o that's hanging out at 260, I would know that. You know what I mean? Like, I think it just comes down to like how competitive I feel it is, you know? Because if it's like, if it does become a thing, but it's not a big thing, and it's just like the talent goes up because that's where the money is. And I'm the only talent that stays down. I would have to be aware of it. I'm not an idiot, you know? Well, I am an idiot, but.
Well, like, is there like any value in like you're the guy who's like raising the level of the 120? Like the competition is.
Yeah, but what if it's just never a thing and then I'm just forgotten?
Yeah. Is legacy very important to you? Like longevity?
No, I just want to lift a lot of weight.
Okay. That's fair. So why don't you go to the open regardless?
I mean, I'm probably going to eventually. Like it would have to be like a real twist of fate where it's like 120 kg strongman is on ESPN every week.
Yeah, it's recognized as the world's strongest man.
Yeah, it's like people, like, it just takes off because these guys are jacked and strong, not fat guys. Wow, right? Like normie appeal, it's a big deal, tons of talent. Then maybe, because it's like I believe at a lean 260 I can be quite strong. Obviously not as strong as if I worked my way up to like 295, 300, but I could be quite strong. I don't think that far ahead like you do. I think very, very short term. Like I have some training plans that extend semi far ahead, but even that I'm probably too short sighted. Like I hear people say like, oh, I plan out years at a time. Fuck, I don't.
I feel like I did that in like high school and like math
I mean,
class.
it has to be really like, it's not like I'm gonna hit this number by this time. It has to be I'm focused on hypertrophy, like what Martins does, what like an Olympic athlete working off a quadrennial would do, which is the first year is more general like they're not saying I need to do this lift this time necessarily. They're just saying I'm blocking out this whole time. The goal isn't to hit a new 1 rep max clean and jerk and snatch. The goal is to like dedicate myself to hard training for more varied qualities and then like block it out that way. Martins does that. He's like these next 4 months, I'm trying to get healthy. The next 4 months, I'm trying to work on like event skill, whatever it is, right? Like I should probably do a little bit more of that, but I'm so neurotic and I'm so like tweaky with stuff. Like it's like, that's why eventually maybe having a coach would be a good thing, is because I've got a very good feel for like what needs to be done to progress. Like it's like if each time I set one of these challenges for myself, I do a pretty good job.
I think announcing them on YouTube is a good idea.
I did that with a 385 overhead press, and then I realized, because I wanted to bench. I realized what I actually wanted to do was bench PR. It sounds like fucking. I'm failing. No one even held me accountable for it too. But yeah, no, the 880 deadlift. That's kind of the idea, is put it out there to take away some of my neuroticism, right? But it's like to become
you've announced so many different goals to me over the last. It's because like you're just like, oh, that's probably a more effective strength training goal. I'm gonna go do that instead. And it probably all leads together to you're still getting stronger because you always have like a base amount of training.
But the thing is, I think the other thing is I can focus on a goal and I've got a good idea to do that goal. But like there's just too many moving parts for it to be like optimized. Like I'm aware of that, right? But it's like the problem is like would need to find a coach that I know I'm going to get along with, right? Because as a coach, I know that's unbelievable. Like having a good coach-client relationship is really important. Like having that open window of communication. Having somebody, like, I'm not going to lie, like I put a lot of thought into my training. I'd like them to listen to me, which to be fair, just about any coach that works with high level athletes, it's a collaboration. Like as someone who works with high level athletes, it's not just me telling you guys, oh, go do this. I want you guys to give me feedback of like, hey, Sam, I'm under training this. I am. And I'll be like, okay, I trust you as a very experienced athlete. We're ramping that up. Like you, Tyler, Justin, like Jasper-ish. I expect you guys to give me like your intuition telling you like this needs more, this needs less. I'm redlining it here. Like I expect all that feedback. Sometimes I'll disagree. And I'll say, we're going to stay to the course. I'm the coach, obviously. 9 times out of 10, I'm going to take it into account. I'm assuming any coach I work with would fall into that same category because it seems to be the dynamic of all high-level coach-athlete relationships, bar a few, right? But it's like I would need to find someone also aligns with the way I think about training, because it would be very, very, at this point, I'm so far into coaching and doing my method, it would be very hard for me to fully buy in and delve in because I'm so neurotic and I'd be so worried, what if it doesn't work, right? It would need to be like aligned with how I conceptualize training as well.
So let's say you got a brand new client, right? Decently high level. To take their opinion into account, would there not need to be like some amount of like time building trust in their opinion, or would it just be like you're automatically assuming they know what they're doing because they're strong?
So it depends, right? It's like if I have some grasp of their training history and they got strong fast.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. Yeah. Right. If they're like, hey, Sam, I've been training for 10 years.
Yeah.
I will put like right off the bat, out of respect for that person's effort, right? I will put like, I mean, I put some weight behind it, like even like weaker clients that are really cerebral about their training, right? Like if Blethen comes to me and he's like, hey, Sam, this is a problem. I believe him because he spends a lot of time thinking about his training, right?
In
sometimes he'll be
ways.
neurotic and right, it won't be productive ways. And I'll be like, nah, we're staying the course, right? So I don't want to say it's just like a meritocracy based on strength. If you're weak, I don't fucking listen to you, right? Like that's not what I'm trying to say. But that big amount of training experience is usually going to be the thing. And like I think I can pick up pretty quick on how much someone thinks about it in productive ways, just based on how they talk about their training. I can kind of get a feel for like, I really need to be listening to this guy, or this guy, maybe he's just floating out there anything he has as a passing thought. So a bunch of them are gonna be wrong, right? Like I've got some clients, I know that's how they think. They just want to message me their thoughts, so we're on the same page. I'm just being a sounding board, and they're just throwing things out there. With other people, wait to tell me until they're pretty confident. Yeah. So it's like that's a big part of it.
Yeah, because I've had people message me where it's like, oh, my coach isn't listening to me. And it's like, that is both the sign of a very bad coach, but also your coach might just know that your opinions, like you just don't know enough about training right now to have productive.
Yeah, no, I mean, if I listen to every single dude that is very early intermediate that tells me he responds to low volume, high intensity training and volume doesn't work for me. Okay, buddy.
Yeah, where it's like if you're saying like, hey, this really hurts, like, and your coach is just like, screw you.
Yeah, well, like a person you don't know that I know had like a coach who's a person that is like somewhat well known, and he was like, yeah, no, I kept telling him like, dude, this is an experienced good lifter, and he's like, dude, I need a deload, I'm falling apart, and just week after week he would get this new week of training. And it seemed like it was just being like written by the seat of the dude's pants. It would be like, and I think the dude was forgetting repeatedly that he had asked for a deload based on like the sound of what he described to me. I was like, this is a dude that really comes up with the training sporadically week by week based on trust me, bro, I'm strong.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can't do that, right? And it's like, you need to listen to like the athlete, especially if they're expressing concern about injury. Even if you think they're neurotic, you still need to trust them. It's like, you can't be getting people hurt when they warned you, I'm going to get hurt.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
Like,
what is the time frame you'd like to compete in?
I'm going to do the Rainier.
Rainier?
Yeah.
This year?
Yep.
For sure.
Yep.
All right, guaranteed. YouTube promise. Sam's doing the Rainier.
I am doing the Rainier, and then I'm looking at there's a couple other shows just to keep busy, get more as you said, compete a little bit more often, get more competition experience. A couple in Idaho that I'm looking at. Like filling in the rest of that year will kind of depend, but the concrete plan for the year is the Rainier.
Okay. When is that?
It was like June last year, I think. June, okay. Like springtime, early summer.
Knock out some quick YouTube questions.
Let's do it.
All right. We're start with Paris's because this is his.
What time is it?
11:23. So I think we're about 40 minutes in.
Cool.
Advantages and disadvantages of having a good training partner.
You wanna go?
Yeah. I think my average intensity is up. Like I think I work pretty hard, but there would be sessions where I'd come in and like my energy is down, or like I'm not feeling it or whatever. And like one day I decided like I'm gonna like not work as hard. Like it's not even a decision I'm making, but it's like
it's subconscious.
Yeah, I like passively. I'm just like, and like I'll always like get in my car and be like, I was a coward. That was really lame of me. I just like did not work as hard today as I should have. And I think having you there's like a certain amount of accountability of like I respect you enough that I'm like I can't just like fully sandbag in front of Sam. Like I can't show up for a hypertrophy session just like, all right, I'm done. Because you would look at me with like disgust. Like I got up. Like,
and it'd be pretty lame.
Yeah, so it's like
I think it's standardized. It's like the same thing as like a logbook, but plus some extra, right? Yeah. It's like the logbook isn't. I'll go off a little tangent for you guys. The logbook is an accountability system for effort. It's not because muscle gain is this simple math equation where if I get one more rep this week than I did last week, I gain muscle. And if I don't, I fail. That's not how this works, right? And a lot of people get too far down the weeds of number chasing to where they think that's how it works. If I put forward a really good effort and I happen to get the same number of reps as I did last week, I still just did a very difficult stimulative set. It's not suddenly not hypertrophically stimulative. The logbook is really just an accountability system. If you don't trust yourself to give a good effort, you just need to know what you did last week. And you want to be able to beat that, assuming we're recovering well, to make sure that we're bringing the same or more effort roughly each week, right? It's not this math equation thing. It's an accountability system, right? Which can be taken too far. As soon as you start fudging rep quality, to get your +1, it's like we're defeating the purpose. It's just supposed to be an accountability system, much the way a training partner, you're like, I'm not going to bitch out of this set in front of my training partner. I'm not bitching out of the set in front of my logbook. Same general idea.
And I think one of the benefits also is the fact that we're both like experienced enough that we're not making one of like we talked about it on Saturday, like one of the classic training partner mistakes of like, I want to beat you.
Oh, like partialing and like really shitty tempos.
We're both like,
you have to beat them the right way. Yeah. Well, it's like, if you do that, I know you didn't actually beat me. If I do that, you know, you didn't beat me. You just cheated, right? So it's
like Sam turned to me and I was like, that last rep didn't count. Whatever it was, you might have still beaten me, but it's like, so it's like it's like really digging deep and trying to like get competitive with it within the frame of still doing good training. Because like there is
when it's like people need to have that accountability with themselves if they don't have a training partner. Yeah. It's like you're competing against you last week, right? Mm-hmm. Like what you and I are competing in one session, they're competing from them in the last week. You need to think about that person last week. Mm-hmm. If you beat them by cheating, you got to think last week's you would be disgusted, like, oh, you didn't win. I was better. Yeah. Last week's you shouldn't think they were better than you. Yeah. Last week's you should be like, oh, shit, they beat me. Yeah. Right. And so like, I think it locks in intensity, locks in pacing to some degree.
Yeah, I would say the major downside right now for me
is the pacing,
is the number of people that ask you questions. Because if me and you were training in an empty training hall, it would be.
We might start doing one or two of them in the garage.
Yeah, it'd be awesome. Yeah, but it's like people constantly ask Sam for advice, which is great that people respect Sam's opinion because Sam has good opinions. Sam also will give a very like nuanced and good answer.
Yeah, talk too much,
and it'll be like. I'll just be like, oh God, I've been sitting here for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And like, I don't want to be rude, but also I need
to you know why I do that?
And being like, Sam's got to leave right now. We need to hit like extensions.
Well, I've got this habit of if someone asks me a training question, I will answer until they give me like a verbal recognition that they get it.
And there's some people that just don't do
They don't. Most people don't. A lot of the people ask and they don't care the answer. Like they're just asking to ask. So they never give. And because they're not even following along. Because I'm like, I'm going to.
Where I'm going until it's like, until you get like,
they're just like completely glazed over.
They're on board.
And I just keep going. Yeah. Until they're like, okay, I get it. I'm like, okay, cool. We're on the same page. I'm just waiting for a nod, like some kind of facial expression. And somebody will be like, so what do you think about this? And I'm like, going. And they just like, they start looking past me. I'm like, you motherfucker. I've been going for 15 minutes waiting. And they're like, man, when is he going to shut up? And I was like, I'm just waiting for you to like give me the nod that you or like understand. It makes me sound like a douche to say, oh, they need to understand it. Usually these are simple answers. I need them to just signal to me they understand what that looks like in practical application. Because you can give a vague, like, if that, like, lots of people that watch a lot of YouTube, right? They can give the correct verbal answer. Yeah. And then they really struggle to implement that in practical application of their training. Like Lou, right? Yeah. Lou could give you a bunch of good answers from watching a bunch of Dr. Mike videos. But then when he was doing his own programming, when he put that together in practical application, it was incoherent.
Well, yeah, because it's like watching a YouTube video doesn't give you practical lifting experience, and it's like
but even if you've got the knowledge, it's just there's a gap between what that knowledge sounds like and what that looks like on a piece of paper, and then a gap between what that looks like on a piece of paper and then how that looks in an actual session. Yeah. Like someone can recite to me really good protocols for auto-regulating. Yeah. They can't do it, right? So it's like that's the tricky part. And that's the tricky part because there's a lot of intermediates that fall into that category, that kind of trap of like, well, I know all this stuff, and it's like, but you're not doing it well, so you're not above hearing it again. Yeah. And like some people even comment on my videos, and they're like, man, like this is mostly just intermediate level, information, and it's like, I mean, a lot of what's gotten me better and better is just actually understanding and implementing intermediate level information. Like you're not above it. I'm not above it. I don't think. I watch a lot of intermediate like geared content because I want to hear different phrasings that's going to give me a better understanding of that process. Cause it's like, I won't watch beginner content. Like I'm not going to lie. I feel like I'm above that, but like intermediates to like low level, advanced level content where it's like, we're not like fucking drawing the golden ratio to find our positioning for the fucking deadlift. Right. Like, it's not like we're not doing like advanced biomechanics. But I'm never above being reminded that sleep matters and there's core habits to sleep well. I've heard that before. Well, you're not doing it, you know?
It's very funny. Here's a theory I just came up with, right? The amount of like advanced informational videos, right? In my mind, extremely limited, right? Yeah. That's not really true. Yeah. Because I feel like there's kind of a split, right? Because intermediate stuff, a lot of it is just doing like being an advanced athlete is just doing an insanely good job of all of the intermediate stuff and very consistently. Yeah. But like the split is like, advanced information usually is going down like the programming path, right? Like there is still programming.
Or technique.
Yeah, programming or technique. That like I don't understand. Like if there are programming videos that I'm like, that's crazy. That is actual calculus. What are you guys doing? But in terms of like the athlete sides of advanced stuff, it's usually watching advanced athletes do stuff. Like where I'm getting
that's
information.
tremendously well because like you said, there's other parts of it. Like the videos are about the programming or the technique or maybe there's advanced nutrition content out there that I really like, right? But there's also stuff that's harder to communicate. But you watch people train. You're like, oh, he warms up like this. He's doing his warm ups with this cadence. Oh, he didn't like how that felt, so he went back down to the bottom of the squat and hung out and like fucking bounced on that leg over and over until he likes how it feels. Like there's that's why people like videos of high level athletes training. Aside from the fact that it's cool to see big weights lifted, is I think if you're really paying attention, I feel like you and I have picked up a lot of stuff from just liking those like old animal videos or like any training video you can get. That's like as fly in the wall as possible. There's a lot to learn there that's nonverbal, right?
Like SSG Bob certainly has like flaws as an athlete. He's not like the perfect athlete by any means. But like there are times in which he'll say like this set equates to X amount of fatigue. And I'm like, that is a very deep understanding of like fatigue. Because he's usually right. And like that's a level I'm not at. Like I can't be like this deadlift set equals X fatigue of a single. And like that's like something I'm like, okay, I could do a better job understanding how fatigue works and stuff. And so it's a lot of like as an athlete, like the advanced stuff is like I don't learn from someone being like, how you do training.
I mean, there's like, different types of learners. And I've been trying to realize that on my YouTube channel. There's like not every. I'm a bit of a like audio learner, right? Like I listen to a podcast. This is where I know a lot. A lot of people like need the whiteboard. They cannot like really turn it into practical knowledge without the whiteboard. And some people need like it's like the do, see, hear, right? So the closest you can get to do is watching someone do it, and then doing it yourself. Obviously, doing it yourself is the critical part of someone who learns from doing. Right?
Or being with someone who's doing it, like doing
or having them walk you through it, ideally, right? And so I've been trying to like, okay, I need a little bit more visuals in my videos because I'm a talker, right? But I mean, in terms of like the training together stuff, I would say the only thing that I've noticed aside from like timing being a little tricky as a downside has been like if I intuitively feel, oh, this muscle needs more work, I'm kind of stuck with you. I can't just run off and go do like extra like rear delts. You know what I mean? Like I can do those at the end, but like it does take away a little bit of the flexibility I use within my training that you don't usually use. Right. So it's like that would be one thing for me. Another fan question. Go. Fast.
Gotcha. Oh my God. Fast.
Fast.
Oh, stop.
You said you're gonna do Paris's other one?
It's gone. It's
gone.
It's gone.
He deleted it.
I'm so sorry. Paris has deleted his question. My goodness. Hold on. What are some things that have helped you focus more in training?
Putting your phone away.
There
was a study that came out on that being on your phone between sets decreases performance. Now, just a single study, we should never really base anything off of, but it supports this idea because lots of guys would be like, oh, bro, I need to rest. I need to do something while I rest. It's like, well, if you're training really hard, a lot of that rest should feel like it goes by in an instant. And once you kind of have recovered and you have a little bit more rest time, you're like, okay, I'm no longer winded after 1 minute. I've got 3 more minutes to go in my 4-minute rest period. I should be thinking about squeezing the muscles I want to squeeze, mental imagery, blah, blah, blah. Maybe I'm going to do a little bit of mobility because I felt like there was something janky. Like there's things we can be doing with that time that are more productive. And I think just being present in the session rather than going through the motions and thinking, okay, my goal today is to get better at bench pressing. What can I do to get better at bench pressing? And just like having, like you're there to get better at bench pressing. You're not just there to think about whatever the fuck and do the numbers in the sheet. The athletes that are thinking like, they'll auto-regulate better because they're like, well, my goal isn't to do this session this way. My goal is to get this session to do this. I'm fatigued today. I'm going to do less. Oh, I'm feeling really good today. I'm going to do more. I'm actually going to hit an RP7 on all 5 of my sets. Right. I'm going to tell Sam I drop back my weight on this assistance movement because I understand why this assistant movement is supposed to help my bench press. And with this much weight, I can't do it the way that's going to serve that purpose. Like I'm not squeezing my back in the way I do on my bench press. I want to drop back the weight on my pull downs. So I'd say that's the biggest thing is just being mentally present during the sessions and thinking, why am I here? Why am I doing each exercise? The goal of the session is to get better at this, this, and this, right? It's like, that's something that's really good about watching Mitch Hooper train is because he comes into like, it's very simple. He's like, I am in this session today to do enough work to get better at stones, throwing a bag, and fingers. And he'll like do a roughly amount of work he feels like he needs to do on each of those to be better. And it's like, if he just said the program says this, this, and this, there's going to be a lot less conscious thought put into like how much, how hard to go, right? And it's like the better you get, the more accurate your guesses are for how much to do. But it's like, if I tell you like, hey Max, we're not benching for 2 days after this, and you're just finishing up, and you're like, okay, well I'm doing tricep hypertrophy, I'm going to do an extra set.
Yeah,
good. Like that makes sense, right? I would say that's a lot of it. I would say a lot of people just are really mentally checked out during their training and just like making an effort to be present and have this be like, no, I'm actively working towards a goal, not just putting in the work that's supposed to lead to the goal.
Yeah, you've seen me in the gym. Certainly have my times of being a screenager and going through Instagram.
Yeah,
which is not optimal for sure. I will say,
there's I don't want to sound like you're not going to get stronger if you're on your phone. Like I was on my phone a long time and I got plenty strong. Yeah. But I think if we got a big session, that should go away.
Yeah, I think there's like a time and a place and habits around it where it's like I finish my set, I'm going to grab my phone, I'm going to watch my video, I'm going to look what I did wrong.
Yeah,
I might scroll my Instagram for a minute and a half. Before my timer goes up, I usually turn off whatever I'm listening to, and I'll reassess what I need to do on this next set. And like I'll usually lie down on the bench, take a deep breath, focus on what I'm going to go do. And like I think that is like a difference of like there were times which I like was like 14 in the basement, and like I just like put on YouTube and I'd lie down and do my set.
Kirsten does that, and I've been trying to like she's like, oh, but I'm doing the training.
Yeah,
and I'm like, there is something qualitatively being lost, even if quantitatively it looks similar on paper. I'm convinced there's something like it's frustrating to me sometimes when people will attribute, like, let's not say it's you and I. Obviously, you and I have good genetics, and I don't ever want to come off like the asshole that's insisting we don't, and we're just that smart and we work that hard. Like, no, we're dumb, and like we work reasonably hard, but it's like a lot of that is predicated on genetics. Sure, but I don't like when I see two guys at the gym and one of them is focused on their training and one of them is just not there. And they'll attribute the difference in progression to genetics. Yeah. That's very frustrating to me because it's like genetics are real. They're very real, right? Yeah. Like we've seen guys that put in really good efforts and they got good, but they never got great. And it's like, holy shit, you're doing everything pretty well. Like I'm sorry, but like you just don't have the genetics to be like some big name brand guy, right? But you can be very good, which is cool. And I think that's probably even more respectable because there's no incentive to do it other than the fact that you love it, right?
And also, like my focus or intensity is kind of applied differently as the program goes as well. Yeah, where it's like if I'm working up to a heavy double, right?
Everything revolves around the double.
Yeah, where like if it's a hypertrophy, right? My focus on each of my sets should still be there. Like I'm actively doing it, but like I'm putting on a bodybuilding motivation thing in my headphones. I'm going as hard as I can on my accessories. Yeah, and towards the end, it's like if I do that, there I can't recover. And so, like, then it's like, all right, maybe I'll just like, I'll throw on some fun music and get through my leg extensions really fast. Because if I go buck wild, I will not be able to deadlift or whatever.
Yeah, it's like you said, how where you're at in the program changes how that focus manifests. Yeah, it's like early in the training cycle, the way we do it, right? It's like in hypertrophy phase, you want to warm up pretty quick, right? Because it's like you got multiple sets to do of the main lift. Yeah. And they're not that heavy, so you can get up to them pretty quick. We don't have to be overly thorough with warming up like we might need to be later, right? And it's like, okay, the goal is just like to be as technical as possible and put in as many technical reps as possible, right? But try to get through that in a reasonable amount of time. Boom, pow, go crazy on the bodybuilding work. That's kind of how that mental focus is oriented.
Come into the session with a goal, I think.
Yeah, like a total volume goal, a rep PR, even if it's not a rep, like the goal doesn't have to be more than you've ever done. The goal could be the nicest 700-pound deadlift you've done, 750. That's something Max will often talk about is like you can do these like ability PRs, which sometimes people just use as a cope for the fact that they never get rep PRs. But I think it's very valid, right? It's like the goal for this session is you do a beautiful this weight. And it's like, that's perfect goal for that session rather than being like, well, I've done this before, so I don't have a goal for the session. Let's try to be better. Let's come in with a way we're trying to be better. Or like if you got in your car last week and you're like, I was a fucking pussy. Yeah. That was Mark Rippett. I was a pussy.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, it's like a tangible goal, right?
Yeah. Like
if I come into one of these sessions and I'm like, if I have an easy time walking out of the gym right now, I failed today. Like,
if you let yourself down last week, that could be your goal. Yeah. Right. You're like, oh, I did a pretty good job. So my goal for like my low hanging fruit to get better this week at this session, like today, actually, last week, my behind the neck push presses were fine. Yep. I did 365 and then I did some back off 350 and fives. Yep. But they were not good because I could not get my pecs to be flexible enough. Yep. I'm going to spend however goddamn long I need to stretching my pecs to do them correctly this week, because that's what I made a mistake last week. So that's my goal coming into this training session.
Yeah.
Like, everything else is secondary. I'm going to get my goddamn pecs to stop being so tight this week.
Yeah.
Because I know what they feel like. They feel a lot better when they're not tight.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think setting goals, what those goals look like, because like I was saying, early in the hypertrophy phase, it's like quality volume, but you're warming up pretty quick, and then you go ham on the bodybuilding work. Later in the training cycle, especially the more and more advanced you get, the more longer it takes to get up to like an 800-pound deadlift. It takes a while.
Well, I always feel stupid where it's like if I'm working up to a
But
720 squat, right?
It works though.
And it's like that session took me 2 hours and I did 1 rep.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be doing that if you
it shouldn't take that long.
Yeah.
It should take you longer.
Yeah.
Because what you want to do is you want to think, okay, this whole session, the hypertrophy phase session centers around 2 things: building quality volume with the main lift and getting your technique real crispy, and then also building a bunch of volume with your assistance work and getting like a little bit sore, getting a good pump, getting fatigued in those muscles, right? That's the objective. By the end, the goal is just, I need that good heavy single. Maybe the back off too, right? But it's like the assistance work is just like light kind of blood flow stuff. So the session is going to be like 90% the main lift at this point for us. For other people, it might go from like 30% to 50%. It's going to take a little bit longer because everything revolves around getting that top thing right. So it's like, if you're warming up and you're like, my ankles aren't moving well, taking the time to go walk over to the seated calf raise and do some of those. Yeah. If you're like, I'm not bracing right, do an extra round of front and side planks, do some bracing drills. If you're like, if on your first warm up, this is feeling wrong, you're expected to do work to fix those things. Yeah. Rest, do the next weight, repeat that weight, earn the right to put weight on the bar. Like, it's like, if your 2 plates was trash, do it again. Yeah. Don't put 3 plates on yet. Right. It's like the same thing. So it's like, because everything revolves around that top single being perfect, but like good, we need to kind of skew all of our effort goes to before that, to making sure we're as ready as possible, warmed up, feel fire on all cylinders, technique is all hashed out, right? Yep. And there's not gonna be much time afterward. Yep. If you're earlier in your training career, there's still going to be some time afterward. You still might have a third of the workout to go work reasonably hard on your leg extensions, your leg press, and you should probably still be doing those. But as you get more advanced, peaking phases become more concretely peaking phases. Yeah.
All right, we'll knock out like 2 more.
2 more.
Favorite workouts to do with one another in the gym? I found Paris' other question.
Deadlifts. I'm liking the deadlift day, the hamstring work.
Yeah. I might go probably the upper back work, purely because it feels so effective. Like, it feels like
I've been connecting with those as much as I want to.
Oh,
I'm trying to figure out why. I don't know.
Maybe we'll do one after that too, because we have to get the funny question in. What are your thoughts on Trained by JP training methods and DC training for powerlifting? Can these methods work effectively for powerlifting?
So, scaled to your main lifts, no. You probably want a little bit more periodization. Like, Trained by JP is this lower volume, higher intensity, very, very logbook training, like logbook centric bodybuilding training method. DC training, dog crap training is Dante Trudell's thing. Again, very logbook heavy, maybe a little bit more use of weighted stretching, a little bit more use of rest pause method. I would not be using those on the squat bench deadlift, in my opinion. But that being said, because we would want to use like training with more reps in reserve a lot of the time, build more volume, build more skill. But that being said, Max and I use a pretty logbook style approach to our assistance work that I would say is kind of akin to Jordan Peters training. I would say it's more similar to that than just like multiple set volume building, like straight. We're not doing that many straight sets. Yeah. We're doing like a top set and a down set onto the next exercise. Sometimes multiple top sets and a down set. But yeah, I mean, scaled to the assistance work is what Max and I do. Scaled to the main work, no, I think you probably need to be training with more reps in reserve and more repeating sets to develop some skill in the main lifts.
Who is better at playing rock, paper, scissors?
Oh, Max is a lot. Somehow Max probably wins like 75%. I don't know how that works out because I'm not just picking rock every time. But Max somehow has a handily winning record over me in rock, paper, scissors, and I don't know what's going on.
Growing up, we had play rock, paper, scissors to see who's cooking the burgers for the night. And I got into cooking burgers very often. I also would just hide in my room.
Yeah, no, Max was playing Skyrim a lot back then, and so he would like turn off the lights in his room and like hide and just like continue playing Skyrim when my dad was like, it's time for somebody to make some burgers. And so I literally always made the fucking burger. I'm really good at making burgers now, but I was the burger guy because if Dad managed to find Max hiding in his room, he would bring him down. We would play rock, paper, scissors. I would lose and make the burgers anyway.
Yeah, it's really weird. When burgers were getting made, was the only time I did homework.
Yeah, no, he would always be like, "No, Dad, I'm doing my homework right now. Look,
I have this massive."
He whip it out of his bag and put it on his table. It's like just has his name on it and nothing else.
Oh, I'd hear him coming up the stairs, and I'm not doing homework.
Dad, I'm doing homework, and I already did my homework because I did my homework, and Dad would be like, "Oh, your brother's doing homework. You got to make the burgers."
Yeah, Max, that Mac guy loves doing homework
all day.
What's it gonna take for Max to give up powerlifting, fake sport for chumps, and fulfill his ultimate God-given destiny, being a strongman? Luke is down near 40. Tom's only getting older. So I think Stoltman's out, for Sheether's in, for strongest brothers on the planet.
Well, Tom is 29.
Yeah.
So we got a while before that.
We got a couple more years before we can get Tom out.
And then also you got the Oliveira's brothers are very strong.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
I feel like, I can get strong enough and people would be like, that guy's pretty strong for a powerlifter,
Yeah, we'll see.
Just
Max is going to join me for a bit of powerlifting training eventually.
Strongman.
Bit of strongman training eventually, right? You made it this far into the podcast. You're an avid fan.
Thank you.
Me and Max can't do the same meets because Max does the tested ones, and I cannot do those ones.
I'm noble
because I am not he's very noble. I am not very noble, and I'm not a dirty cheater, so I can't do those meets. Otherwise, I would try to pitch to Max some idea of like we alternate powerlifting strongman contests and we just do the same contests. That way we can get an Airbnb because that would be way cheaper to travel. If like we did like strongman nationals and we did it together, we could buy an Airbnb and it'd be really easy, right? It's very difficult for me to justify, especially because I just think of myself as just some dude that lifts weights in the garage. Like Max can justify traveling because he's Max the powerlifter. Like I just lift weights in my garage. It's hard for me to justify dropping a bunch of money to travel to go compete. But if I was doing it with Max, right? So maybe eventually we'll be doing something like that where it's like Max will coax me into training for a powerlifting meet just to lose to him. And then we'll go do a strongman contest and hopefully I'll beat him there. But kind of line up our competitive seasons to be more similar. Something I would definitely like to do. And who knows, maybe if I'm like really deep into strongman, I'll just take Max's powerlifting prep to train by myself and not do that one, obviously, or do it with him, either or. That's something I would consider at some point. And Max has said that as long as it's like cool, like 2016 Arnold type strongman, where we're doing just like excessively heavy yokes and static lifting, he's in.
Yeah, I have a lot of like very concrete goals in powerlifting right now before I can, in my mind, like start to think about the transition to strongman.
Well, I was going to say, I was actually thinking about this when I saw this question.
Yep.
Max is a smart guy, whether it's intentional or not. He doesn't allow himself to think, what am I going to do for strongman? It's like, no, like the second you start like splitting your goals like that, you start mentally checking out.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to think, then I'm going to do this.
I start like randomly grabbing a log on a bench session.
Yeah, it's like, and then I'm going to do a bodybuilding show. Like maybe I'm going to lean out at some point. And it's like, no, you've got very, very difficult to achieve goals. They're very difficult, right? Yeah. And they're 20-year goals. You can't afford to be like splitting your interests a ton. So it's like, I am Max the powerlifter and I need to not allow myself to get like too far down these, and I'm training for this at the same time.
Well, that's always the funny thing to me whenever I get like bro, the cut would be legendary. Obviously that's a very goofy question or goofy comment. But it's like, to get here, I've had to choose to not be lean for 10 years. Okay. In the beginning, it was not a choice. Typically, I was just a fat kid.
Yes.
But at this point, I put in enough work that I could look pretty respectable.
Yes.
But it's like, in order to achieve very large goals, I can't just be like, yeah, it'd be pretty cool if I had abs.
Every young super heavyweight powerlifter is like, I'll hit this big total, and then I'll get abs, and my total will stay the same.
Yeah, the reason I'm competitive is because I don't get distracted by the allure of abs.
I mean, Jesus Christ, there's a lot of people you've beaten by just not wanting to have abs. Yeah, so that's the plan. Eventually, maybe Max and I will start doing some competitions together. I'll lure him into the world of strongman. But for the time being, the focus is powerlifting. And for the time being, mine is epic gym lifting.
Hero lifting.
Gym hero legend.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you.
Lad 6. Guy who asked about the rock paper scissors. I'm also giving you a fake T-shirt.